It's just turned white. We are now live. Okay, so I welcome scholars. Today we're going to learn a little bit about Google Classroom. All right, so we're going to go into our Chrome, Google Chrome. This because it is a Google app, it works best with Google Chrome. So I know some of you use Firefox, but I believe it will work with Firefox. To get to Google Classroom, I'm going to hit my apps over here. Your scholars have the same thing on their Chromebook. I believe theirs is in the lower left-hand corner, though. And we're going right there at the top, Google Classroom.
Are the lights okay? You're good with this?
Good with lights, good. So you can see I have a couple of classes in here. There's two thoughts. I'm going to pause here for just a moment. You can either use the same classroom year to year, which is good in the sense that you can reuse things you've put in there. So if you got it all set up, you're using the exact same lesson plans and resources from previous classes. You just go and delete all of the students from it, and you can reuse it class to class. I like the idea of actually archiving each class and adding the content. That way it kind of grows with me. It also allows me to go back and pull student examples. So when Becky says, hey, can you send me some examples of student work, I just go right to my archives, pull a couple. Here's an 8, here's a 2, here's a 1. Yes?
Will you create a class called PD Demo?
Yep, we're going to do that.
And you can add people to it so they can see.
Yep, absolutely. So here's all my archived classes from previous years. Just want to show that really fast. And you'll notice that they kind of have like a cross-hatching through them. So I can go through and pull information or resources from these old classes if I want to. So you can do either way, whatever suits you best. But let's go make a class and get going. Okay, so we'll go back to classes here. So in the upper right-hand corner, we have a little plus sign. So I'm going to demonstrate this and have you guys actually join the class. So you can see what your students go through. So we're going to create a class. We're going to call this Test PD. You can add your section number, subject, and room number, all that sort of stuff. Yes?
What if you don't have the create class?
Yeah, I don't have that button.
Yeah, for a lot of them it's saying join class.
Yeah.
Okay, so what has happened there is at some point, so a couple of years ago, if you weren't using Classroom, and I believe Becky created a MYP class. And when you went into Google Classroom for the first time, you click student instead of teacher. And so now it won't let you create classes. That's an easy fix. We just need you to email Matt Woods and say, I need you to switch my Google Classroom account from student to teacher because he has to do that. You can't do that. Okay? But for now, your students will be able to join the class, which is great. So now that we have a class, you can go and you can select themes. You can also create custom themes. I make this a project in Photo 3 where I have my students make Google Classroom banners for me. They're fun. They're kind of cool. Gives us something new content. But you can go through and it has all these different options. So like say for sports, you can go through and choose math, science, English, history. They even have a couple animated ones that they did in the past.
If you need to have your...
So right here it says select theme.
Have your classroom fixed. It's M. Woods or T. Arnold.
Is it TID or TLD, the class code?
Oh, okay. So to join the class, so this is really hard to read, right?
Yeah.
Click on that little button next to it. There you go. So I usually put this into my syllabus. It's in, we do this in class. There should be no excuse your scholars aren't in there.
So it generated a random something?
Yeah, so when you're creating a class, but for now, go ahead and join this class.
So what does that mean? I created one. I shouldn't have created one?
You can.
I'm in there.
You're in? We don't need everyone in. If we get a couple folks in there, we can demonstrate some things in there.
So if you're really savvy, this is a great way to kind of mirror, giving the student opportunity to reference your class during.
Right. So what I do is I don't upload a whole lot to ManageBack. You go into ManageBack, you go to Digital Photography 1, it's going to have a link to this. So I'm only updating in one place. I'm not adding it to Classroom and then adding it to Manage Back. You're creating work for yourself. So as long as you add Becky and Carrie as teachers to the class, we'll go with that in just a second, they can go in and access all the information. That's what they want. They just want to see what you're doing. And,
And Google's a lot friendlier and more accessible for everyone.
Right. So the students, so they can go. Now for the written stuff, they'll submit that into Manage Back. That's a new thing instead of Classroom. But I'll probably have the students do both because I don't have a whole lot of written stuff. But if you do have a lot of written stuff, maybe you stick with just Manage Back. For a digital platform class, this is fantastic. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. It's a great marriage. But there are a ton of applications to it. When we get the forms and integrating those into Classroom, it will just make your life so much easier. I know some of the Spanish department's done that. So that last year was kind of a test year. How did it go?
Oh my God, it was great because it just automatically gave us the grade at the end. But I do have a question about that though.
Okay.
Like
Well,
my first period, then when my A period came, I had one kid that got 100%, which never happens. And I
Right.
was just kind of like, can they?
So I'll go over some things you can do to kind of help protect yourself from that. Okay? Okay.
Who's
So-
Michael Lennon?
All right. So you see a lot of you are in there. He's right behind you.
How is it that we see you in the?
So one of the cool things you can do is you can add parents to this. So the parents will get a notification. You drop an assignment into Google Classroom, the parent gets a notification too.
Oh, like those.
Hey, you can't be inviting my guardians.
What was that?
Don't invite my guardians.
Yeah, you can't. I'm saying you can though, if you wanted to. So
You're
I've
an adult. You're your own guardian.
right.
How did you change the picture?
Okay.
Yes. So to change the picture, let me go back to that really fast.
Right?
It says select theme. You can also upload a photo
What? Oh, with the-
right here. Yep.
Mine doesn't have one.
Because you're a student.
Yeah, you're not-
So as a teacher, you'll be able to go in and customize it for yourself. So when you
No, this is.
select theme, we'll just change it to this one. Here, I'll do graduation.
Oh, that's the one I created. Oh, I see.
Will you tell me the code real quick?
Yep.
This one here?
I think I need to.
Hey, Byrne, it shows your name, right?
I think I need to ask him to do that too. Let me see if I'm able to create a class.
People.
The high school. They do everything masterly class, but it's not for us.
So in my classes, this is an ATL. Getting into Google Classroom, setting up your account right. It's not worth a grade, but it goes into Gradebook. That way, I can tell parents, well, he's struggling because he never did these things. Okay, so let's go in and we can see. So at the top, we have our tabs here. So stream, this is kind of like Facebook stream, right? It just kind of shows everything, all the activity within the class. I usually don't do a whole lot there. I spend most of my time in classwork and people. You can integrate grades into this, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But let's go to classwork, and we're just going to do a test assignment here. So the very first thing I have my scholars do is the syllabus. I don't spend any time in class talking about the syllabus. I give them the syllabus. They have a week to read it and take the form that goes along with it. So let's do that. So I'm going to create. So I hit the create button here, and we go to assignment, and we're going to do syllabus. I'm going to add those resources from my drive, which I've already created there. So let's do.
Yeah, we don't have
You're a student.
Yeah. So right now you're viewing it as a student.
You gotta go to view your work.
Are you doing classroom stuff? Working classroom? Are you working? Are you doing your? What part are you working on? Yeah. Are you on? Do you want a signature? Every time when you. This is the previous thing we did.
Okay. So what I normally tell my students is you have a week to read the syllabus and do the form that goes along with it. You have to get 100% to earn
Do you
the
want
points.
Your signature on every
And
so you don't
So I'll
just
put that information in the description here. I'm not gonna do that now, but I'm gonna assign this to you. When I assign this, it's kind of cool. I can assign it right now,
when
or I can schedule
send
it.
an email,
So say I want this to go in on
these
Monday,
things at the
8
bottom of the
a.m.
email every
Boom.
time.
It'll
So you
it'll
can
pop
put
up
it
there.
as
It's also good for assessments because you can do it by class period. So you can just know at 8:04 this is gonna go
Sure.
live.
Look,
Or you can just leave it like this and just walk over and hit assign. You can also save it as a draft. Say you want to start working on it and then come back later to it. You can do that as well. So right now we're going to assign it. It should pop up in your feed, and it'll say at the top of your screen, your stream has been updated. So just like Facebook, right?
What it says for your See? Huh? You're a Spanish teacher, right? Yeah. Immersion. You got a cap on it.
Okay, so just for funsies, I'd like you to go in and open up that
Or
form.
maybe your office hours if you
Just
want.
put in your name really fast and just run through the questions. Just make up I think there's 10 questions to it
On the syllabus?
on the syllabus form. Yep.
Does it matter which one we do?
No, just put. We're just gonna look at. I'm gonna show you how to look at that information.
Well, one.
So what you're gonna get once you hit submit, it's going to give you a grade. You got 9 out of 10. So we're going to the form, not the syllabus. So
So it matters.
right, yeah. So the syllabus, that's the document that they're gonna read to get the information from. And then they're going to take the form with it. So this is great for formative assessments. There's a subject you want to cover a little more deeply, or you just want to kind of just get a quick gauge of where they're at with things. This is a great way to do that.
So if I click on syllabus, how do I go backwards?
So it opened up as a tab. So just go back to the classroom tab.
Oh, no.
What's that?
Using all day.
Yes.
What you're
I need
saying
to
is
update
they
this
can
for
come
sure.
all day to get help.
Right there.
I'm not teaching photo one this year, so
We have office hours only after that first special.
Phil's doing that. So Phil needs to update it if he wants to use this.
I think about
All right.
answers.
Mr. Byrne,
Yes.
just a quick question while we're doing this. If you were to create a Google form and you're using it from your own account, do you have to set it up so that the responses come back to you, or will they automatically come back to you?
They will automatically come back to you.
Because it's coming from my own account.
So right now I'm pulling up the form that you guys are filling out right now. So I'm looking at the teacher side of it. You guys saw the student side of it.
Remember clearly? If you want your room.
Good job.
So you would have to retake it. You gotta get 100% to get the points.
Then we go all the way to the bottom.
Okay, so when you're creating a form,
Let's see. One more thing. Go back up.
I made this into a quiz. So to make it into a quiz, you go to settings,
Turn this on.
and then on your third option over, you have general, presentation, and quizzes. You click this little mark here, you can make it into a quiz. Okay? You can receive grades immediately after submission or later manually review. So I always do, most of the time it's just, I do it automatically so the scholars know exactly how they did right away.
So initially, when you're converting the test into this, it's real cumbersome.
Yeah, so the first time there is
You
some
come
steps you have to
my
do,
rooms.
but then after you create it, you just got to maintain it. It's done, and if nothing changes, you're good to go.
Like, computer sequence
So now that it's a quiz, we go back to general. I have some options here.
after a PD today.
I always collect email addresses just in case somebody doesn't put in the correct name or puts in something they shouldn't put in, right? I can still track it that way. This one is optional, the respond receipt. So if they want one, they can get a receipt of that they took the quiz or whatever. Restrict to Odyssey Preparatory Academy users only. That's depending on where you're using this at. So I try to keep it in-house. And then you can limit it to one response. So if it's, in this case, I wanted the kids to be able to take it as many times as they wanted to in order to get that 100%. I didn't want to turn that on. But if I'm doing a summative assessment, yes, only one response. That's going to keep the scholar from going back into it, screenshotting things, or because they can screenshot things too. That is the downside. So there does need to be some diligence by you when they're doing this. Are they? Because
how do you manage them leaving the room and taking the test?
if they can only limit it to one response, I have everyone. I spread them out over the room.
Yeah, can't they take the computer out of the classroom?
But once they take it and they hit submit, they can't access it again.
So they don't leave till they finish.
Right. So what I do is when you're done, close your laptop, go outside, or because I have the balcony, I have that option, but or just sit quietly.
And you can see who's finished or not.
Right. So
Up on your screen.
in the responses, it'll show me. So I'll show that in just a second. They can edit after submit or set summary chart. And I never clicked that one. All right. So that's kind of how you set that up. Once you're in here, so on this question here, I put in my question. It's I can choose multiple choice or all of these different options. It has some. If you're a math teacher and you Google search and YouTube maybe math and Google Classroom, it'll show you some cool things that you can do in Classroom and Forms to add to the math side. And it's probably the most difficult one. Everyone else, this is great because you can create assignments for most things in here. We have all these options you can choose: paragraph, short answer. Now, paragraph ones do not auto grade. Those ones have to you'll have to manually go in and read, and because obviously, right? Okay, so right here is where I have the answer key, and I can go and say this one. So I'm not available on Wednesdays after school. That's worth 1 point. I can assign it a point value, right? So this quiz is worth 10 points at the top here,
Thank you, Friday.
and it automatically saves as we go.
No
So-
game.
So at the top here, we have questions. On the right here, we have responses. So we have 81 responses. It gives me just a quick summary. So it tells me who took it. So as Ms. Moosbergen was saying, did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay. As she was saying, if you were worried about them taking it outside of class, you could just literally have this sitting up there and it's going to populate as they finish. So you know, hey, John Yankee didn't finish his quiz and he walked out. You can address that. So names. Okay, so on here, it tells me that majority of the scholars. So again, this is great for when your administrator comes to you and says, are you collecting data? Well, yes, I am. Here's some of it, right? This percentage of kids did well on this assessment, and here's the results from it. 90% of the class got this question right. I mean, you can get really detailed with that. So it automatically collects data for you, so that's one thing that kind of you can check off your list. But also as a teacher, it lets me know that, hey, maybe I need to go back and look at this question a little more. I had 32% of the scholars miss this question. I might want to retouch on that subject again, kind of thing, right? And then it does. So this is just a general overview of everything. And then you could also do it by, scroll to the top here, you can do it by the question or by the individual. So if I want to go look at John Yankee's information, I simply have to, well, it's actually going to be easier to do it this way. So you're going to be at the bottom of my list here. Oh, you didn't do it? Okay, so,
He gets a zero.
Yeah, he hasn't done it yet.
all right, so look at So if I want to look at just Mr. Saylor's, in that summary section, I can click right on his name, and it's going to bring up all of Mr. Saylor's responses. So I can go back and individually look at his really quickly that way. Yes.
4 out of 10. So I try to-
No, you did good. You did one of the better ones. So.
There's opportunities for improvement. That's right. Yeah, I got one of the break.
Good news is you get to take it over.
So we're going to pop back to Google Classroom here really fast.
How many times did you just keep taking it? Remember your old entry.
No. No, I don't.
if you wanted to, if you're going to use forms exclusively, you can set this up as a form of gradebook as well. It'll import the grades from those forms into Google Classroom. I don't like to do that because I have to put them in Synergy anyway. Yes?
Will you open an already completed form that students completed and show how you can get the spreadsheet of results?
Yes. So the one we have open, we can do just that. All right, so we go back to our responses right here. You'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, we have this green icon.
That's the Google Sheets.
This will take all of the information from this assessment and put it into Google Sheets. One click, there it is.
Where do you get sweet graphs and stuff? Where does that stuff come out?
Graphs. Oh, I always struggle with graphs.
Is it in the Sheets program, or you have to make it? Or I mean, is it in the Forms program, or you have to make it from the Sheets?
I believe.
Grass? What's that?
Grass.
Grass, like green grass with a P on there? Or grass?
Graphs.
Grass. We were wrong completely.
We all
What about in Forms? Because I think I did a math test for student last year on Forms.
I always forget where the graphs option is in Forms. Or, yeah, in Google Sheets.
Oh, what about data? Someone just said data.
It's not under data.
It's a grass.
No, it should.
Okay, can you go back to the Forms?
Yep, I couldn't get it wrong.
Go back to the form itself, and then where's because I've been able to say, there you go.
Yeah.
Summary.
Summary.
Okay, so you can stay in forms in the form itself, and you go to summary, and it shows you like sweet graphs of. And you can show the scholars this because it doesn't say anybody's name. So you can show them like we had 80% of the class with a C or better. Kind of thing.
Yeah, this is also great for bell work. So maybe you have a couple of questions, one or two questions, and they can go in through. You can just kind of pull the class really fast on a subject about in chemistry, for example, right? See what they know, so you can kind of gauge where you kind of need to start that conversation off with, or just test them. Hey, John said you said here you know a lot about nuclear fission, so share what you know.
Where do you keep your pigeons
Yes.
at?
Where do I keep what?
Like pigeons.
My pigeons?
Pigeon messages.
I'm not getting it.
It's an option. It's the
One of your
wrong
answer
option.
possibilities was pigeon messages.
Oh. Like send a message by pigeon? Yes. Sorry. Yes,
So,
Mr.
Mr. Byrne, just one quick question.
Yes.
So, how do you set up the form so that, like, let's say if I have 6 classes that I only want it to be, I want the forms utilized in one class. How do I?
Great question. So, you create a form, it's maybe for a summative assessment, and then you want to mix it up for that next class, right? At the top here, you click the 3 buttons that are right here, and you can make a copy, and then you can manually move things. Or, you also have this option under your settings. Let's see here, presentation. Under presentation, you can show progress. You can shuffle question order, so it'll randomly move the questions around.
This was in forms?
This is all in forms.
Oh, I thought we were in.
We're bouncing back and forth between Classroom and Forms, how to integrate these into Classroom. So under presentation, you can shuffle question order. So that's, Sandy, maybe this is a way to kind of mix up those questions.
Yes.
So that way,
But the thing about it is like, okay, I submitted the test, but then I went back to the test and I was able to hit the back button, and so now I have again the questions. I won't be able to submit it again because they'll say response already submitted.
Right.
But I'm able to see the questions and then take it to second period and show, hey, this is what we have.
right,
Because we have to make sure that they close out of it, so like,
right.
you know what I mean? Because these kids, they'll.
Yep. Now, if they're halfway through the quiz and they hit the back button, they're going to lose all their answers. So
Isn't there a way that you can show only the grade and not the correct and incorrect answers?
say it again.
Isn't there a way that you can make it to where it doesn't show the answers?
Yes,
The
yes.
answers? That will help you out right there too. If you click on it, that way they don't know if they're right or wrong.
So you can
it
do like.
will show the answers, but it will show the questions, so they'll be able to
They're
still look at the
researching the
questions.
questions on their own before.
Right, and give it to them. But that
Right, yeah,
either that you just gotta switch it up.
yeah.
I
Make
was
sure
gonna
that they X out of it.
you wanna make sure they're walking.
So as you and
And
under
also when they're done, have them close the,
Yeah.
do something that's not computer related until everybody's done, you know what I mean?
Some of them
Right.
X out of it, 'cause they'll change the screen.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're switching screens in the middle of an assessment, you're done.
Yeah.
I'm going to close your laptop. I'm going to pull you aside, and then I'm gonna give it to you on a piece of paper then later on.
And then you can keep track of who's done or not through the
Right.
like oh who finished them.
So if you
During the no red ink and common lit, they were flipping back and forth on screens, but again, I didn't have it on a master to watch them, but as I walked around, they were very clever in how quickly they were.
So I usually put it to a spot where I can see most of the class's screens from one spot. So as Mr. Sane was saying, you can go and you can show missed questions, you can show correct answers, and then point values, or you can turn them all off. They don't know. It's really up to you.
I was just gonna say, when you shuffle, one of the things I found with forms is if you're gonna have it shuffled, make a first section your name,
Sections.
and then switch to another section, so it shuffles around so the name doesn't come like,
in the 7.
you know, the question 24 is your name.
So what
I
she's
just usually just make it different sections, so.
right. So right here where it says name, I would just simply go up here to on the side here and it says add a section.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on name. I'm going to add a section. Now it's broken the name part into its own section. It's not going to shuffle it in that section.
Right.
You can
Right.
shuffle section by section.
That way name doesn't show up on question
Well,
50.
it'll shuffle the questions, but it doesn't shuffle name, just
Yeah.
doesn't happen to shuffle, because it would only shuffle
Section
name
two.
with name.
But it's not going to take this section and put
And
it
mess
like
it with
at the
the other.
bottom.
No.
It's not going to put it
Nope.
underneath other sections.
The sections will stay the same. It'll
Okay.
randomize the questions within that section.
Yeah.
You could do scaffolding that way too then. You could have like the different levels be scaffolded, increasing difficulty of questions. So this is a very powerful tool because as you get comfortable with Google Forms, you can actually go in and give it options. So so you can say, okay, I asked this question about, we'll use photography for example here. Which part of the exposure triangle affects depth of field? The answer is aperture, right? But say a scholar clicks shutter speed as the answer. When they click a wrong answer, you can then redirect them to a resource where they can read about why, or to a video or a picture or something else, so that way they can get the information instead of just, you got it wrong, move on. No, here's the correct answer and why. So it's almost like choose your own adventure books where it can kind of map you around to different resources so the scholars can get the correct information. But I would say just start with this, and once you get more comfortable with it, start exploring those options to add that extra things. Yes?
I did a lot of feedback last year where I was trying to be, I thought about growth mindset. I was really in a growth mindset kind of place. And unfortunately, a lot of my scholars were in a let's cheat and do as little work as possible and get as much good grade as possible. So I was letting them redo it. And some people were actually giving me my feedback, and so I just basically had to say, no effort, no grade. But this year I'm just going to make everything like they can do it once on a form. And then we can talk about if you want to redo it, how you're going to redo it in a different way. Because I gave such great feedback, they were basically just cheating.
Right, they were just regurgitating
Just so you know,
what you said.
I was trying to help them learn, and it didn't work. And those were juniors and seniors.
So I do want to give a warning about this. If the scholars have Grammarly installed on their Chromebooks, which a lot of them do, all they have to do is click on a word to get the definition of it.
Oh yeah, and they'll give you junky definitions of them.
Yes.
Or they'll Google.
So if you're doing vocabulary quizzes, if they have Grammarly, that could be challenging or something to consider. I'm not sure how it works well with Spanish. If it translates.
They could translate, yeah. I will ask if they could translate it. And then when students said, this is all in English, and I was like, no, you need to translate.
It'll give them the option to translate.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of them don't know something. It's great. I love it. I mean, the other thing too from the book, you could take the picture and add it there, add the like a paragraph
Right.
where they read, and so add the pictures too.
Yeah, so let's do that really fast. So in here, if we want to add a picture, so in between this question and this question, so on this one, I want to add a picture. I can add an image. You can upload anything. It can be a video clip. It could be an image. It could be a graph, a screenshot that you took from something else, a passage from a book. You can put all kinds of information in there. All right, that was a ton of information. So that's using forms in Google Classroom. I'm going to show you really quick while we're in Classroom. Let me get out of this. One of the cool things you can do is say you create a resource that you want each scholar to have their own copy of it, right? So we write an essay at the end of Photo 1 using the language that we've learned within the class. So let me pop in here. We'll go to Test PED. I'm going to go to Classwork. I'm going to add an assignment, and I'm going to add, we'll say it was, we'll just call this summative. And we want to do end of unit or end of semester.
Byrne, this is very helpful, by the way.
Thank you. End of semester essay. When I put this that's not the one I wanted. Let me try that one more time.
You want to end at 9:50, so there's 10 minutes before.
Mm-hmm.
Just in here.
End of. Okay, so we'll say this end of the rubric for the end of semester. So when I have it in here, I'm still kind of creating the resource. You'll notice it's a drop-down box here. I can make it to where students can view file. So say it's my syllabus. I just want to get the information that's the same for everyone. Or if I want them to interact with it, I click the drop-down box here, and I can create. Students can edit file, which is the one I don't recommend. Is make a copy. The one I do recommend is make a copy for each student. So when I do this and I hit submit, and I assign it to you, you'll notice it's going to automatically change. It's going to say end of task-specific rubric, end of semester, -- John Yankee. It will automatically put their name on it, and then once they're finished interacting with it, they hit submit, and it's in Google Classroom. You can access it right there. So everyone gets their own copy of it. That way they're not having to go through and make a copy and go through all those extra steps. This will save you a lot of time in explaining.
Does this prevent them overwriting the shared documents?
Yep.
And so each individual.
Exactly. They all get their own copy of it. You still have your master. Yes.
If you have a document that is a PDF and you need to, how do you convert a PDF to some of these others? You know, like they don't talk to each other when you want to make something or do something, and it has to be, and there's like a gazillion acronyms of. Right. PDFs are not interactive. There are some programs that will convert PDFs into Word documents and things like that. Well, I can show you one-on-one. Yeah, that probably takes. We're running out of time. But it can be done, but there's a process you have to go through. It's a Chrome extension, so we can do it that way.
The test PD class.
So you can actually, I'm going to delete it and it'll remove it from your system.
Oh, so you have to do it because you created it?
Yes. Yes. Really quick. I know there's just so much information that we're kind of just breezing through. For people, this is great if you want to email your whole class quickly instead of doing it through Synergy. You just go here, click the drop-down box, hit email or actions, and then email. And then it will pull up a Google Gmail, just like you're used to seeing, and it blind CCs everyone automatically, and you can just send out a quick message to your class. So again, back to the communication theme of yesterday, another great way to communicate with your class really quickly.
Where did you put the button?
So yeah, you just go to, we're at People, under the People tab right here, and then you click on the box right here, or you can go through and select individual scholars, and then email. Now, say you have a class where you want to differentiate. You have one group that's really far ahead and one that's kind of struggling, and you want to give them two separate assignments. When you create assignment, you can actually go in and this drop-down box and say, I want to do just these scholars for an assignment. So an example of DP Film where we have year ones and year twos, juniors and seniors, they have totally different assignments. So we can group those assignments in classrooms specifically for one group versus another. So it's great for differentiation if you want to do different levels of things. Or you have that scholar who needs, they talked about the vocabulary quiz. Maybe you give them 4 instead of the 10 as an accommodation. You can assign that one just to that person that way. So
So once you invite, so you have to individually invite each.
you put that class code up on the board, and then they go to classroom, they click the plus icon, they can join the class. You can also, so since we're in people, I can actually go in and manually enter somebody. So right here I can go in and say I want to add Carrie Hurley. I put in KH, she pops up right there, I click invite. And then they'll get an email saying you've been invited to this class, kind of thing. Yes. All right. So we only have a couple